Cover cropping is just a really amazing way that small family farms can improve soil fertility, increase nitrogen, improve soil health and organic matter in a low-cost way. It's a way that you can grow your on-site fertilizer. You're growing your own fertilizer.
Cover cropping is essentially, it's a crop that you plant that's not your cash crop. So you can plant it before or after. There are a lot of different benefits that cover crops provide. There are the obvious ones, like you're covering the soil, you're preventing erosion from wind and sun. But then there are some of the less obvious ones. You're bringing in a lot of species diversity, you're adding organic matter to the soil. My name is Jamie Barton. I run Healthy Soils Hawaii, which is an agricultural consulting business. We work with farmers and ranchers in Hawaii to help them implement soil health practices and climate smart practices. Generally, when I'm working with farmers, I ask them what is their primary objective. We try to identify what that is, and then from there, we determine what type of cover crop species we want to use.
We've been implementing cover cropping here on this farm so that we can actively improve, restore, regenerate the soil. My name is Dashel Kerr. I'm a co-founder and executive director for Hawaii Institute of Pacific Agriculture. We're here on our farm up in North Kohala. We have a 26-acre site, and we're starting to develop new gardens at the site. We did some soil testing recently, and we found out that there's a lot of improvement that we can do. We like to plant cowpeas, buckwheat, we do Sudan grass, we do a crotalaria, which is sometimes marketed as sun hemp, and we've experimented a little bit with a New Zealand clover. You know, in terms of favorites, I mean, they're all really good candidates and they do different things. The cowpeas are great for nitrogen fixing, the crotalaria is great for nitrogen fixing and nematode suppression. The Sudan grass would be a crop that we use more for biomass. And then the buckwheat we really like because it adds a little bit of potassium into the soils. So we're here at the Hip Agriculture Farm. Really thrilled how this block came out. We were already wanting to improve the soil fertility of this area. These are new field blocks that we're prepping for future production. And one of the best ways we can do that is running some nitrogen fixing cover crops and some biomass crops. We did cowpeas, crotalaria, buckwheat, and Sudan grass. I'm getting excited to mow this down and incorporate it, and then we'll be able to put out our crop and get some really nice food out of here. Well, we just pulled out this crotalaria, also known as sun hemp, and I'm really pleased to see that it's filled with nitrogen-fixing bacteria nodules, these kind of pinkish clusters. Those are clusters of bacteria that are actually sequestering nitrogen out of the atmosphere and putting it into the soil. We also like to grow a lot of crotalaria in our agroforestry polyculture fields. We use the crotalaria kind of as a nurse crop or a pioneer species that helps us improve the fertility of the soil by fixing nitrogen, creating biomass, creating more carbon for the system to feed that soil food web and help to lean it towards a more fungal dominant soil that's going to support our long-term tree species. But this whole tree, this whole shrub, see if I can get a little better angle there, can turn actually into, and these crack really nicely too. It's kind of cool. You can just kind of even use your hands to break this material up. And what I like to do is turn this into what I call kind of like fertilizer packets, right? And we can just kind of, you know, get this mulch together, and this turns into a nice packet of nitrogen and carbon that I can then directly come up to a climax species that I want to grow better, like this ava or this guayusa, and I can actually feed this into the soil here. And if you notice underneath these trees, they got a lot of really great leaf litter and debris, and it's like there's an active composting happening underneath each plant here. So this is a great way we can chop and drop our nitrogen fixing plants and turn them into food for the plants that we want to grow.
Soil health is so connected to what we put into it, and having cover crops that are just growing in place rather than us having to bring something to add to our soils. This makes complete sense. My name is Christian Zuckerman. I'm the farm manager and director of social ventures at Kahumana. Since I've been working at Kahumana, since about 9 years ago, we've been consistently doing the cover crop. We just planted our avocado orchard at the end of May. The plan, as we sort of slowly progress through the orchard, is to start putting in alley cropping in between the rows of avocados.
Right behind me is our newest orchard production here. We have 50 avocado trees, pallets set up for a windbreak. We have a lot of space in between, the spacing of 30 foot on center, so we are implementing what we call alley cropping, or essentially trying to cultivate the space in between while we have time for it to be open in use. We put in our first alley crop over here, which is a short-term cover crop of sun hemp, buckwheat, Sudan grass, essentially trying to create organic matter and soil fertility. And then once it's at its full growth, we are going to mow it down, till it into the soil, and create better soil health.
If you have a farmer who's never cover cropped and are interested in cover cropping, I think there's a few things that you need to do before you actually dive into it. Assess, why are you cover cropping? Are you trying to address a soil health issue? Are you trying to address an erosion issue? Are you trying to address a fertility or like a fallow situation? Because each one of those different scenarios is going to provide you with a whole different sort of avenue of cover cropping that you can go down.
If you want to get some cover crop going, it's really easy. You can buy some cover crop seed, and then you're going to prep your area, whether you open it by hand with pickaxes or a small tiller, or hopefully you have a spader that's going to not damage the soil structure, not create compaction. And then you're going to sow your cover crop seed. You're going to make sure it gets adequately watered, and then that seed will pop and you can let it grow up. Once the cover crop grows, you have options of how you want to incorporate it into the soil, and depending on the farmer or the grower, there's different options. Some growers like to incorporate that cover crop when it's green and young and supple and has its peak nitrogen. Other farmers are really hot right now on adding more carbon into the soil for the soil food web, so they'll let that cover crop come to full maturity, and then they'll mow that down and either incorporate that or leave it on the soil surface level. Another option might be to, if you have a roller crimper, is that you can actually roll and crimp and damage the cover crop so it won't regrow, and then you can directly plant seedlings into that cover crop and use it as kind of a living mulch.
Building soil health does take time. It's not something that you're going to see in a single crop cycle or a single season. It's something you really have to put work into, but it's worth it because you end up seeing reduced disease pressure, pest pressure. Healthier soil ends up creating this condition where you can grow a healthier crop. You're growing more nutritious food. More nutritious food is obviously better for people.
There's a lot of incredible work happening right now to develop a local seed industry in Hawaii. And I think we have a huge opportunity and potential to become a leader in the nation for high quality cover crop seed because of our year-round growing climate. It's really my hope that some of these bigger tracts of land that were in genetically modified corn and seed corn convert into growing cover crop that we can use in-state and also share with the nation.
Hawaii has limited land, and so we're always going to face this challenge of, can it be done somewhere else more cheaply? Because there's economies of scale, there's cheaper land, water, labor. So the cover crop seed industry here would have to overcome some of those barriers and be able to produce cover crop seed cheaply enough that it could compete with what's being brought in.
And I think at the end of the day, it might be a great opportunity. There's a huge amount of land that's fallow, state ag lands that aren't being used. So if we could turn that into doing cover crop seed growing, that'd be great.
The recent statistics coming out of the Seed Expo this last year are just horrifying. The stat is that within the next 60 years, we'll have utilized all of the topsoil on Earth at our current burn rate. It's essential that humans learn how to regenerate the soil. We cannot continue at this pace. We're starting to face some real ecological limits in our ability to produce food for the amount of humans on the planet. Use cover cropping as a tool, whether it's in your backyard, on your farm, in your orchard, to improve the soil for future generations so that we leave them, you know, a Garden of Eden, not a desert.
I would encourage any farmer that's interested in experimenting with cover crops to give them a try. There are a lot of resources out there that can support you, from the Natural Resource Conservation Service to folks like HFUU. So definitely check in with some of those guys if you're interested in implementing those types of practices on your farm.